I still remember the exact moment it happened. Her voice pierced the air, sharp and demanding. "You need to apologize to Mike. He's my best friend." Those words weren't just loud. They carried a weight of accusation, entitlement, and expectation. I froze for a second, trying to process the sudden intensity. Mike? My actions toward him were minimal, polite at most. Yet somehow in her mind I had crossed an invisible line, and she was certain that I owed him an apology. Her name is Lauren. We had been dating for nearly 2 years, and up until that moment I thought I understood her. Thought I could anticipate her moods, her reactions, her needs. But that scream shattered any illusions of calm. Her emotions had a volatility I hadn't fully accounted for. And I realized in that instant that some people's loyalty to others comes before their respect for you. I didn't react the way most would. I didn't yell back. I didn't argue. Instead, I inhaled slowly, reminding myself that reacting impulsively would only escalate the chaos. In my experience, confrontation without strategy rarely leads anywhere good. So I said calmly, "Fine." She blinked, as if my calm acceptance surprised her. For a brief moment, I wondered if that was enough to satisfy her. But then, without another word, I grabbed my coat and headed toward the door. She called after me, her tone shifting from outrage to a pleading mix, but I didn't stop. The air in the apartment felt thick, every heartbeat echoing louder than the last. I could feel the tension coiling around us like a spring ready to snap. The walk outside didn't calm me. I kept thinking about Mike, Lauren, and what this apology even meant. I had always been respectful toward friends in her circle, careful not to overstep boundaries. Yet here I was, expected to grovel for nothing, caught in a storm that wasn't mine alone. I reminded myself that sometimes standing your ground is as much about timing as it is about principle. By the time I reached my car, my mind was clear. I would apologize, not out of guilt, not out of fear, but because sometimes diplomacy is the smarter path. Sometimes taking one step forward can prevent 100 unnecessary battles. But I also knew that this wouldn't be simple. Lauren's loyalty to Mike was unwavering, and her expectations were inflexible. As I drove toward the place she had demanded, I kept my hand steady on the wheel, my thoughts focused. I didn't need to understand everything. I just needed to be ready for whatever happened when I arrived. The morning light reflected off the windshield, but it did nothing to ease the unease building inside me. Whatever awaited me with Mike and Lauren, I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't going to be ordinary. When I arrived, Mike was already there, standing in his usual spot by the coffee table, casual and unbothered, completely unaware of the storm brewing behind the walls of my apartment. Lauren stormed in moments later, eyes blazing, voice still sharp. I could feel her tension radiating, a mix of anger and frustration. And there I was, calm, watching, waiting, knowing that how I handled this moment would set the tone for everything that followed. Lauren didn't waste a second. "You need to say it. Out loud." Her hands trembled slightly, betraying the intensity of her emotions, even as she tried to dominate the space with sheer volume. Mike looked between us, confused, clearly expecting me to snap or fight back. But I didn't. I let the silence stretch for just long enough that the room itself seemed to lean forward, waiting for me to speak. I took a breath. "Fine," I said quietly, my tone steady. "I apologized to Mike." Her eyes narrowed, like she was evaluating whether my apology was genuine enough to satisfy her expectations. Mike raised an eyebrow, clearly bewildered by the spectacle. Lauren's lips pressed into a thin line, and I could see the calculation behind her glare. She wanted dominance. She wanted proof that I would bend. She wanted me to acknowledge some imagined wrongdoing. But I knew something else. Her anger wasn't about Mike at all. It was about control. About loyalty. About the way she expected her friend's validation to outweigh any sense of fairness. And in that moment I realized just how little my compliance would actually resolve anything. Saying the words wouldn't fix the imbalance she had created. It would only temporarily mute the chaos she wanted me to feel. So I stayed calm, not adding another word, letting the tension build just enough that she understood I wasn't afraid. Mike, sensing the subtle shift, leaned back slightly, unsure what to do. Lauren's frustration escalated silently, a tight coil ready to snap. And then, as if on cue, she pointed at me, her voice trembling slightly with suppressed fury. "Do you even understand why this matters?" I did. But I also knew that understanding didn't mean submission. The truth was I had already made my decision. I would go through the motions if necessary, but I wouldn't let her emotions dictate my actions. Not this time. The room seemed smaller now, charged with tension and unspoken words. Everything I had ignored, every little grievance, every expectation, every silent resentment, it all hung there, palpable, waiting for resolution. And I knew that when Lauren finally realized I wasn't playing her game, that was when the real moment would come. The tension had reached its peak. Lauren's eyes burned with a mixture of frustration and disbelief. Mike, still standing there awkwardly, looked from her to me, as if trying to figure out what game was being played. But I didn't flinch. I didn't raise my voice. I just let the silence speak for me. Finally, she let out a sharp sigh and took a step back, the fury in her posture softening just slightly. I could see the internal battle raging inside her. The need to assert control versus the realization that I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of a reaction. "Fine," she muttered, almost to herself. "But you better mean it." I didn't respond with words. I didn't need to. My calm presence, my refusal to be manipulated, said more than any apology could. Mike, sensing the shift, relaxed slightly, though he still looked uncertain. He wasn't part of this, it was never about him. He was merely the symbol, the catalyst for Lauren's emotions. Lauren's shoulders slumped, the fight draining from her. I could feel the room exhale as if it had been holding its breath for hours. That's when I realized that the morning's confrontation wasn't just about an apology. It was about boundaries, about respect, about understanding that I would not be pushed into submission just to satisfy someone else's emotional whims. I took a step toward the door, letting my actions convey what words could not. This was over. Not because I had surrendered, but because I had claimed my own space, my own dignity. Lauren's gaze followed me, a mix of surprise and grudging acknowledgement flickering in her eyes. She had tested me, pushed me, tried to make me bend, but I had remained firm, and that had changed everything. As I walked out, the morning light hitting my face felt different, clearer, freer, almost cleansing. The lesson was simple. Some battles aren't about winning or losing. They're about knowing your own limits, standing your ground, and refusing to let someone else define your worth. Later, when I reflected on the event, I realized that the incident with Lauren and Mike had revealed more about her than about me. It wasn't just about friends, apologies, or loyalty. It was about control, expectations, and testing boundaries. And by staying calm, refusing to react impulsively, and asserting my own presence, I had turned a potentially explosive confrontation into a moment of clarity. Sometimes the most powerful statements aren't shouted, they're lived. That morning, the way I handled it said everything.